'Tis the season for kids and cows, blue ribbons and silver cups. We're talking about the show ring and showmanship as the 4-H livestock season takes center stage. Good afternoon, and thanks for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva in for Amy Finley. You and I may think of this as the dog days of August, but for hundreds of 4-Hers, it's the playoffs, the championship, and dare I say, the Super Bowl? Fairs and field days in Vermont have been in full swing for a couple months now, but now is the time when the ribbons really come out. To talk about 4-H competitions and classes, those words mean different things to 4-Hers, we're joined by 4-H livestock educator, and I'm happy to say longtime friend of Across the Fence, Wendy Sorrell. Wendy, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. When people talk about fairs and things like that, they talk about the food, of course. Everybody thinks food first, but I often hear people say that the thing they enjoy the most is going through the barns and seeing the kids and the animals and things like that. So talk about the 4-H livestock program, which you lead. What does it do? Just put kids and animals together?
So when the youth are picking a project, obviously they're picking something they're passionate about. And you know, and I know, that if you're passionate about something, there's not enough that you can learn about it. There's not enough that you can talk about it. So when you go to the fair and the kids are participating in these classes, they're showing off what the hard work that they've done through the summer. So they're showing their animals. They may be successful, they may not be, but it's all part of the game. So when you go to the fairs, talk to these kids, ask them the questions. How did you start with your project? What was your hardest thing to do? What was the most fun about your project? They'll be willing to tell you anything and everything they can.
And when you say pick a project, you're saying that when a kid joins 4-H, and we'll have some information coming up shortly for people to join 4-H, that's when you say they're like, I want to do this. And you know, the sky's the limit when it comes to 4-H, and livestock is traditionally one of the most popular.
It is here in Vermont. So when they're picking a project, they can pick anything, and you don't necessarily have to own the animal, but you're picking it because you want to learn about it. There was a dairy club that was part of Shelburne Farms. Those youth did not know anything about dairy when they started, but Shelburne Farms is one of the educational places we have here in Vermont. And so the kids were able to learn, where does your milk come from? How hard is it to be a farmer? What does that really mean?
And those were Shelburne Farms cows. Those kids weren't bringing in random cows to the Shelburne Farms barn.
They were leasing the animals from Shelburne Farms.
So we think about cows. What are the other animals in the livestock program?
So there's dairy, there's sheep, goat, llama at one time, and working steer. And a lot of people are unfamiliar with working steer because they're not familiar with that term. Working steer is a castrated male. There's two of them yoked up, and people think, well, isn't that an oxen? Well, they're not oxen until they reach the age of 4. So then you'll see like ox pulls and things like that at the fair.
We were talking before we started talking about learning by doing, how it's something that we all do. Of course, it's a hallmark of the 4-H livestock program. What does learning by doing look like with livestock?
Well, you're learning about the animals. So you go to we'll use Shelburne Farms again as an example, or any farm. You go to that farm, you're learning how do you catch that animal? How do you put the halter on? Because believe it or not, it may look simple, but it's not. Halters can be upside down or backwards, and you want to put them on at a certain size. So you're going there and you're learning about the animal. You're learning about how the farmer rotates his animals and how they grow and why he keeps them and why he doesn't. So it's not just showing, it's learning everything you can about that animal.
Some of the video that we're seeing is from the 4-H livestock program. One of the things that one of the shots was of the kids in the barn with the cows that I got years ago at the Big E. And I love that shot, but it's also sort of brings a stereotype, which is these are animals, these are farm animals, these aren't pets. The kids may, fall in love, you said, with their animals, but these are farm animals, they're production animals, they're not pets.
Absolutely. Any animal that's in the 4-H program, and I've talked about dairy, but we have, sheep, they're, like you said, they're production animals. Even, we have the horse program, which is a popular program, and then you're putting this youth brain with an animal brain and hoping that everything goes right.
Right. And there's also there's when it comes to shows and things like that, there's a great deal of I was going to say beauty school, but there's a lot of things that you have to know to get your animal ready for a show. It's not just the halters and the walking, so to speak.
Exactly. When you're riding a horse, are you riding English? Are you riding Western? There's equipment that's acceptable for each one of those seats and all the seats that are there. And then, at the horse show, we have over 60 classes. So which ones are you going to go in? Whereas in dairy, there's 2 classes. So there's a lot of thinking about which way are you going to go and how are you going to handle it.
Right. 4-H is a national organization, as most folks know, and they are currently promoting something called Being Beyond Ready. What does it mean to be beyond ready?
So as a youth, you want to be able to communicate well, you want to be flexible, you want to be able to work with others, and then the Beyond Ready in 4-H is getting you set to do those things, so you're learning life skills. So in the dairy program, when they're going to national conference, they're making up a resume, they're getting a cover letter written, and they're getting a letter of support. In the horse world, if they want to go to eastern states, they're filling out an application and having an interview. And all of this is part of the life skills wheel that you see now, and those are the skills that they're learning, and it's informal. They don't really think about, oh, I'm learning this, but it's decision making, it's critical thinking, it's empathy, sympathy, all those things on the life skill wheel that these kids are practicing without formally realizing it.
Without practicing.
Without
so yes,
practicing.
The life skill wheel, not a great graphic for television, but a great graphic with all the things that are on there that these kids are learning. You brought up something that was interesting to me. You were talking about the kids getting ready for shows, resumes. How old are they when they are doing this stuff? We're talking like 14, 15, am I?
Well, so for competition-wise, to participate with livestock, they're 8 to 18.
Okay.
There are clover buds that are 5 to 7,
right,
and they might participate, but they don't get judged, so they get participation ribbons, whereas when they're 8 to 18, they can compete.
Right. I'm not good with ages, but 8 to 18, to be a 10-year-old and having to write a resume, not too many 10-year-olds have to do that, but if you want to be in these competitions, it's part of what the responsibilities are.
Well, for the dairy conference, they have to be 15 to 18.
Right.
So
okay. Still.
So they're practicing, and at that age, that's when you want to start getting those skills together.
Right. Break it down for us. What do the skills look like in practice when a 4-H'er wants to register for these competitions? What are some of those things from either the life skill wheel or in general that you are teaching them?
Well, so let's use the horse classes for an example. You have 60 classes to choose from. You might have a younger, inexperienced horse, so you want to limit maybe the number of classes that you participate in, but you want them to get used to the ring. If they're an older horse, you don't want to overwork them. So again, you're critically thinking, what can my horse handle? What would I get the enjoyment out of doing? And how can I make this happen where it's safe for both myself and my animal? Same with dairy. I mean, there's the showmanship where you're competing against maybe 5 or 6 others, maybe more in your class. So you're thinking, how am I going to make the most out of this opportunity? And keeping in mind that it's one judge's opinion on one day could be different at another show.
So there's learning by doing for the horse as well. Like not you want to push the horse to do something they haven't done before, but also not push them too far that they're not going to want to do it.
Right, or that they're going to get upset with you.
Right.
Correct.
They're going to get upset with you. Yeah, there's that part too. I think we've been talking around it, but I think we're go right at it, which is this is one of the reasons, as I said at the top of the show, people like to go to the fair to see the kids and the animals. And you said it then, but please repeat it. Talk to them, right? Ask them what's going on, and ask them anything, because you can't ask them a question they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people when they come through the barns, they're not, they might not be that knowledgeable, and they might have questions to ask you. So be open, even as a 4-H member, go to them and say, hey, do you have a question? What do you want to know? This is my, cow Alma, and she likes this and doesn't like that, and she's a whatever, tell them the breed. It's our chance, it's the 4-H'ers' chance to educate the public and become that public speaker, which is another life skill.
Right. Introduce yourself.
I
mean, that's a big thing, even for old people like me.
Absolutely.
To introduce yourself and to do that stuff. Besides the kids, the cows, the llamas, the sheep, volunteers are another important pillar of this organization. Talk about the volunteers and why a 4-H volunteer makes a difference, Wendy.
Well, 4-H is a volunteer-driven organization. We can't have the clubs, we can't have the opportunities if we don't have the volunteers. We're very fortunate that we have several volunteers that are passionate about the program and they want to give back, whether it's a short spin, small program, or they introduce and have a club.
And the way to do it is right there on the screen, uvm.edu/extension/youth. That's where you can join 4-H or volunteer. And you said, basically, I said before, the sky is the limit. You can have a 4-H project in almost anything, not just livestock, but we're talking livestock here. And not only do those clubs need leaders, or volunteer leaders, but they all, so do the competitions and those things like that. And speaking of those competitions, there are still some coming up. We're here in August, Wendy. We're taping this a little bit before then. When can people go and see one of these competitions? Here are some of the upcoming events. You got the Vermont State Fair on August 18th, the Caledonia Fair a week so after that, and then Champlain Valley Fair, of course. And then this one at the bottom, September 3 through 7, Lancaster. Yes, that is New Hampshire, but there are a lot of Vermonters who take part in that. And then the Orleans County Fair at the beginning of September. All places where you can go see 4-Hers.
Also, this coming Saturday at Addison Field Days, the fair is done, but we're having a working steer competition, and it's our third one. So people are welcome to come down and watch that.
If you've never seen a working steer competition, definitely go. I want to mention the Tunbridge Fair in the middle of September there. Not so much 4-H events. There will be 4-Hers there, and they have the best ice cream shop bar none in the state. So definitely go to the Tunbridge Fair to the 4-H ice cream scoop.
Yes.
We are just about out of time. I wanted to ask you, okay, so, if this was a high school sport or, someone's like, hey, come see my cousin play, softball or whatever, what should people look for when they are at a 4-H animal show, a working steer show? Is it easy to understand the rules?
Well, not for your very first time, but the more you go and the more you watch and the more questions that you ask, because it's not only the kids that want to ask, answer the questions. You've got volunteers who are more than willing to help you and answer those questions, whether it be at the dairy show or working steer or at a horse show. They'll just be willing to answer.
Can you watch the judge and know what the judge is thinking?
Well, if you watch enough classes, you can try and figure out what he's looking for, and then, or she is looking for, and then you can see if you can match up and see if you can agree with them or disagree. You don't have to agree with everything that they place. You might place it a little different for another reason, but the more that you go, the more you'll learn.
And is it how the cows walk? Is it how the 4-Hers are holding the animals?
So in showmanship, it's how it's presented, how clean it is, how well you're leading it, whether it behaves or not. But the other thing is, how are you handling it as a youth? Are you getting discouraged? Are you frowning? Are you crying? Things happen, you get emotional, but get through it. And like I said, it's one judge's decision on one day. It could change.
Great advice. It always is one judge's decision here as well. My thanks to the team behind the scenes here at WCAX who are always willing to share. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence. Thanks for being part of our family.